Okay, guys, let's get this quiz review. Have our multiplying and dividing quiz coming up. And so let's quickly go over the review one more time. Now, remember, this review had some things on it that I needed you to change. So as I'm going through, I'll remind you of that. So number 1 says, find the product and model the solution on the number line and use the counters. So let's first just look at the solution. So we know that 3 times 5 is 15. These signs are different, so it's negative. Don't forget about your Dorito man. So I have a positive 15. Let me make him a little bit bigger. I have a positive 15, so I'm going to cover up 15, and a positive 3, and a negative 5. So that leaves me with a negative, and so that negative is what goes on my answer. That's the sign for my answer. I'm moving things around a little bit to try to make sure I have everything in focus. So we're good and focused. I had some focusing issues on the last one. Okay, so that is the solution. But now let's look at how that looks on the number line. All right, so I think I'm going to use some of my color pencils right here. And just do a little bit of color on here so you can see a little better what's going on. So we start at 0, and I need, don't forget that we need to rewrite this. Let's look at what this writes as. This is 3 groups of -5. Okay, that is 3 groups of -5. So that's what we want down here. So we want 3 groups of -5. So we start at 0. And we're going to go to -5 one time, to -5 again, and to and then -5 more. So when we do that, here are our 3 groups. 1, 2, 3. These are my 3 groups of -5. Now remember, with multiplication, our number lines are just straight across. With adding and subtracting, we stack them. Okay? So now, showing this with a counter model. So now let's show this with a counter model. So I have 3 groups of -5. So here's 1 group. Here's 2 groups. 3 groups of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me get my glasses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 3 groups of 5 negatives. And what that gives me, and this is how it will look, you'll have this arrow, and that leads to have 1 big group of -15. Okay, and that's what your models will look like tomorrow on your test. Nothing anymore. And they're very simple, nothing too fancy. So now looking at number 2, -15 divided by 3. This is, again, don't forget about your Dorito man. So we do the math and then determine the sign. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. Then I cover up 1 negative for my -15, 1 positive for my +3, and I'm left with a negative, so my answer is negative. All right. Then we, of course, have our song as well, and I'll be putting those in Google Classroom for you to listen to again tonight also. So we've got -5 there. So now let's model that with a counter. What we have here is -15 divided into 3 groups, okay? Negative 15 divided, and you've got to know that verbal model. The verbal model is what helps you write or draw your models, because here's our 3 groups up here, our 3 groups, and then so down here we need negative 15. So we're going to start with negative 15. And that negative 15 is going to be divided into 3 groups. And those 3 groups would have 5 negatives in them. So there's our negative 15 divided into 3 groups of negative 5. All right. Number 3. Now this looks totally different than it did on your study guide or your quiz review. But let's look at this problem, talk about it, and just talk about what's here, because you'll have something similar to this on the quiz tomorrow, but you're not going to have to draw it. So but I want you to look at what we've got right here. Miss Bosworth wrote the problem 7 times negative 3 on the board. Darcy modeled the problem by drawing 7 arrows on a number line. Ethan modeled the same problem by drawing 3 arrows on the number line. Which student modeled the problem correctly? So the key to knowing which one modeled the problem correctly is writing what you have and writing that verbal model. So if we take this right here and we write our verbal model, this is 7 groups of negative 3. All right. So we've got to have 7 groups. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And she has negative 3 in there each time. So we've got negative 3 7 times. Down here, we have negative 7 3 times. Now, both of these end up in the same place at negative 21. But the problems mean 2 very different things. This problem is 7 groups of negative 3. This problem is 3 groups of negative 7. So according to our question, Darcy's model is the one that is correct because it shows those 7 groups of negative 3. All right. The height of the tide at the pier at Panama City Beach Pier Park decreases 36 feet in 6 hours. Write the division expression that would represent the change in the tide per hour. So it decreases, so we know that's a negative, in 6 hours. So we have negative 36 divided by 6. When we do our Dorito Man, so 36 divided by 6 is 6. Cover up 1 negative and 1 positive, and we get a negative 6 as our answer. Okay, so we've got a negative 6 there. We now need to interpret our solution. So what does that mean? It means that the tide decreases. The tide decreases or drops 6 feet per hour. Okay. Describe and correct the error. Negative 9 times negative 7 draw our Dorito man right here. Cover up both of those negatives and we have a positive. This should be a positive 63. 63 should be positive because multiplying like signs gives a positive product or answer. Okay, right here, again, let's draw our Dorito man. 15 divided by negative 5, we cover up a positive and a negative, and that leaves a negative. This 3 should be negative. Because multiplying unlike signs gives a negative product or answer. All right. Looking at this, the repeated addition. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups of 2, which gives us 12. This is 3 groups of negative 4, which is going to be negative 12. All right, a couple more. Now, on this one and this one, number 7 and 8, yours didn't look like that on your paper, so you want to make sure that you make sure those look like that on your paper, just so you got the right stuff for the review. Something happened with Google downloading those when we got ready to print them and we didn't catch it. Also, 9 and 10 may not look like this on your paper, and if they don't, you want to make sure you fix that. So what is this? This is 3 groups of 8, which is 24, and this would be 5 groups of negative 6, which gives us a negative 30. Solve each expression. Let's just draw us a big old Dorito man right here. Negative 18 divided by 3. That 18 divided by 3 is 6. Cover up one negative for the 18 and a positive for the 3. I have a negative left, so that is my answer's sign. 2 times 3 is 6. Cover up a negative for 2 and a positive for the 3, and I have a negative left, so that makes that a negative. 24 divided by 4 is 6. Cover up a negative for the 24, a positive for the 4. I have a negative left, so that goes with my answer. 6 times 1 is 6. Cover up both of those negatives. My positive is left, so that's positive 6. That positive goes to my answer. 36 divided by negative 6. 36 divided by 6 is 6. Cover up a positive for the 36, a negative for the 6, and that leaves a negative, so that negative has to come out here and be my answer. So circle all the ones that are equivalent, which means equals to. Equivalent means equal to negative 6. So A is negative 6, B is negative 6, C is negative 6, and E is negative 6. Okay. True or false? This was 90 on your paper, so you need to make it a 30. Fix that. 5 times negative 6. Well, I know that's a negative 30. A negative 30. And negative 30 is not equal to positive 30. That's wrong. So that is false. 494 divided by 26. That's a negative divided by a positive, which is going to give us a negative answer. So we need to come right down here and just do some quick. And I'm going to be honest with you. The first thing I would do is I would take 19 times 26, and I would just see if that works. 6 times 9 is 54. Carry my 5. That's 11. 9 times 2 is 18. Carry my 1. 494. That does equal 494. I multiplied this to see if I got that. And if that works, then all right, so now I know that 19 is what goes in. I know that works, but negative divided by positive gives me a negative answer, so that is true. Negative 2 times 6 is a negative 12. Negative 12 times a negative 7 is a positive 84. That is true. Negative 63 divided by negative 9. 63 divided by 9 is going to be, we know that this negative and this negative are going to give us a positive answer. So that in itself tells us that that one is false. All right. So study these. I'm going to be putting some other things in your Google Classroom for you to use to review. And let me know if you have any questions before the quiz.